So the last thing we need to do to really reproduce our scene as we've done with the scene editor here, now that we have our sphere, pyramid, and box, we need to add a directional light and an ambient light. So if we go back to the view controller here, we can create add lights like this as a different function. So we have our func create shapes, and now we'll have func add lights. I could just carry on in here, but since they are not shapes, I just thought, this is something you can reuse anyway. You just have to drag and drop, and you will be able to reuse this function. So let's first create a light. So a light doesn't have a geometry. It's basically a light, but it still needs to have its node added to it, so we can change the position and the Euler angles, and also add as a child node to the scene view. Okay, so first let's create directional equals as SCN light like this, and we can say that directional dot type what's going on, build equals dot SCN light. Doesn't like SCN light. Oh, it's because of this capital letter here. Okay, so now we can call directional on the type for the directional light. Okay, build. Okay, it's all gone. Right, and what we had here was, let's just go back and check how we created it. So as I said before, the position really doesn't make any difference here, so we'll just leave it at 0, 0, 0. However, this angle here, the Euler angle of 45 degrees or minus 45 degrees for the x, does make a difference. So let's try and reproduce this in code. We have let directional node equals SCN node like this, and the directional node dot light equals directional like this, and also so that's now where we change the angle of it. So directional node dot Euler angles dot x, so that's the one we need to do minus 45 degrees. However, in code it doesn't work like this. We need to use radians, which means minus 45 degrees is pi divided by 4. I strongly advise you to check radians on Wikipedia if you don't understand this. But basically we're doing not a quarter but an eighth of a circle, so it's pi divided by 4. There you go. And finally, so we have our directional node that we need to add. So it's not dot add, actually, it's same as we've done before, the scene views scene dot root node dot add child node, and here we've got obviously our directional node. Cool. So this is okay for our directional node, and if we run, we can see that we have added now our light, and we have some shadows and shades. That must be very dark at the back, yes, and under. Okay, so that's why we need now to add our ambient light. Let's just do that quickly. So if I go in my lights function, so let's just do let ambient equals scn light, and we are going to say that ambient dot type, I've done it again, light with a capital L. So its type is an ambient light. Cool, so now let's create our ambient light node equals scn node, and our ambient light node dot light equals our ambient light, like this. And finally we have so this time is not about the Euler angle, but more about the color of the light, like we've done with the scene editor. So if I look at the ambient and I look for its color, you see it wants to add any. So here I want to have a UI color. So what I'm going to do is to create a color equals a color literal, like this. And here I can choose the light grade I had before. So I can just pass the color now. There we go. And finally, I can call my scene views scene.root node and add the ambient light node that we just created. Cool. Let's just run, and that should be enough for this first section. This is all working really well. We have now a cube, a sphere. It's not too dark. If I look around, I can still see some shading to them though, so that's great. It looks pretty much like the first one we've done. It's not exactly the same, but I think that this shows you how it's up to you. You can choose to build your apps with the scene editor or strictly in code. There is no better way. I think it's really just down to you. Okay, so there's going to be a little challenge now, and after that we can carry on to section 2.